We'll see what happens. Am I getting echo? No. Yeah, I'm not sure how this is going to work actually. Maybe we'll need to test this a bit more before we go live with this on Fireside. But okay, Yana, you ready to start? Or are we already streaming? Alrighty then, let's get this show officially started. Welcome everyone to the EOS Fireside Chat. Today, June 22nd. Thanks for joining us. We've got actually a pretty big show lined up for you guys. A lot of topics to cover. Real quickly here, we'll be talking about Pomelo Season 3 kickoff. We'll be talking about the new Bluepaper that was recently released for Recover Plus. I'll be actually reading out some of Yves' tweets. He's been on fire lately, tweeting up a storm, and it's been really good. So I'm going to share some of those. We'll be talking about OCI, hiring EOS devs. Of course, we'll be talking about Trust EVM, the new project that was recently announced, CO20, which is launching on Trust EVM. They've also got a Twitter Spaces event coming up. We'll be talking Yield Plus. We got Chinese Twitter Spaces event coming up tomorrow morning. And there's also a Yield Plus portal preview that was posted by Defibox earlier today. We had the ZOES whitepaper released. We'll be mentioning an Upland interview with the co-CEO, co-founder Idan, and also talking a bit about EOSIO Coalition meetings returning to the public eye. And of course, as always, open mic for the community. We love to hear from you guys. Encourage you guys to jump in, say hi, ask questions, share updates, all that good stuff. Mel, maybe mute your mic on your end, or I may have to mute you myself.
Sorry, Matt.
No problem. No problem. And yeah, so just like last week, I may call out specific people in this chat here, trying to increase the engagement, trying to motivate you guys to jump on the mic. Yeah, Marty got the Insta server mute. I will unmute you, give you a second chance, Marty, since you're ruining your sleep cycle to join us today. May as well let you speak up. Yeah, say hi. Maybe
Yay!
Marty, if you can.
Yay! Hey guys,
Marty's
happy to
with
join
us.
you guys. I'm still awake. Yay!
Still awake? Is that a good thing
Excited.
or a bad thing? I don't know.
It's good. Yeah, it's a good thing because I didn't have electricity for the whole time because there was electricity shut down. So I'm just getting back home. So trying
Back
to,
home,
I had to
power.
stay up. Yeah, it's so hot here. I had to get like my, it's impossible to sleep here without AC or a fan or anything really. So like listening to you guys is really helpful. And I'm happy to join the Fireside Chat once in a while. Pleasure to be here.
Are you
finally, not so
hold up, are you
muted
saying
anymore.
listening to us puts you to sleep? Is that what I understood from your
No.
comment?
No, I can't sleep because it's so hot here. It's like 38 degrees and I don't have AC and no fan or nothing, no electricity. No Netflix to put me to sleep, no podcast to put me to sleep, no internet to look at anything, put my brain at ease. There's so much going on in the EOS ecosystem. I'm so busy in my brain. It's so cool. So yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, well, happy to have you back. For those who don't know, Martin is part of the EOS Nation team. Me and Martin work together with .gems, working on the Pomelo NFTs, working on managing this Discord server and a bunch of other things. Actually, Marty took a little vacation, a little long overdue vacation after working really hard for us for 4 years straight, basically. Well-deserved vacation there, and yeah, glad to have you back in action, Martin.
Absolutely.
Right. We've got Chris Barnes in the house as well. Welcome. Jay Taylor, Felix, Norse, Sapiens. Not sure. I think you're new, or I don't know. Have you joined us before, Sapiens? Come on the mic. Say hi. We've got Doug.
Hi, can anybody hear me?
Okay, never mind. Don't come on the mic, Sapiens. Where did the server
Lol.
mute you? That was crazy. There's a lot of background noise. Sounds like you're in a factory somewhere. Doug Wu, nice for you to join us. All right, so let's get it started. Let's talk about Pomelo. So Pomelo Season 3 kickoff article was published last week announcing the dates for Pomelo Season 3. I don't remember them by heart. Let me just go check them real quick. So we're launching, applications are opening on July 19th. So that's just in about 1 month. So get those grant applications ready. Season 3 is coming real fast. And applications will be open for 3 weeks, just like last time. So July 19th to August 8th is when we'll be accepting grant applications. You know, a little word of advice to you, to people submitting grant applications. Don't wait till the last minute. Last season, we had someone submit his application really, really last minute, and there was a bug in the system or some sort of error. And, you know, we were afraid that grant application might not make it through. Thankfully, we were able to get him in, but just, you know, try to get there early. We also noticed that grants who do, you know, apply early tend to get more support. Of course, when donations open, which is 1 week after when applications open on July 27th, that's when the donations start rolling in. A lot of time we'll see a surge donations at that time. So, you know, try to make sure you get your application ready in the first week. Also, another reminder is that we do, the Pomelo team does need to approve your application as a public good. So it's good to give the team a few days. Of course, there's a big rush at first, so sometimes it does take a little while for the team to go through all of these applications. I know that our Pomelo team has expanded a bit, and so hopefully we'll have more capacity to do these reviews even quicker than we did last time. But still, I really encourage you guys to submit your applications early so that you're ready for when donations open on July 27th, and then we see this initial rush of donations. And what that does is that it is a signal to people to see which grant is getting a lot of support early on. And, you know, humans being humans, we kind of want to go with the crowd. And I feel like grants that have early support tend to accumulate more support over time as well. So, yeah, okay, so that's it. So get your grants application ready. Donations are open for 3 weeks as well, from July 27th to August 17th. And then after August 17th, you know, Pomelo team analyzes the results, distributes the matching pool that to qualify grants that pass KYC. So season 2, there was a lot of analysis done. Again, we've increased our capacity a bit in that regards, and we hope that this season, or for season 3, the analysis will, you know, be done a bit quicker than last time. Testing the Telegram live thing. Yeah, so Telegram live thing does not seem to be working. We're gonna abandon that. We're gonna shut that down. And video chat, and we'll try again later next week. All right, so. Some more Pomelo Season 3 action. Well, actually, Pomelo Season 2 survey is the last day to complete the survey. We've had some responses so far, so thank you very much for everyone who's filled out the survey so far. If you haven't done so yet, it literally takes like 1 minute, and we really appreciate it. And by filling out the survey, you are going to help, you know, improve the quality of public goods and you know, quadratic funding on EOS. So I think it's super important. If you participated in season 2 as a donator or as a grant creator, please take a minute. I've shared the link in both the stream chat and the voice chat, because we've got 2 chats going now. So click that link, fill out that survey. We appreciate it a lot. It's closing, you know, tomorrow. We've also got the same survey going out to the Chinese community and the Korean community, and we'll be compiling those stats and you know, using your answers, you know, to help us improve the service and the quality of the platform for Pomelo, and we may also share with everyone some of the more interesting statistics that we find out. All right, so final thing here on Pomelo from my side anyways. We've also launched the Series 3, Pomelo Season 3 NFT series this week. So the first drop is live. We're selling some carbon fuel for you guys to get ready for this NFT adventure. We'll need a lot of fuel to get to where we're going, and so you can load up right now on those carbon NFTs. If you participated in Season 2, you'll be kind of familiar with the format of how this NFT series goes. Next week, we're dropping the Grand Collectible packs. So in those packs, you'll find 3 Grand Collectible cards. These cards are created from the top 20 grants from Season 2. So you'll be able to collect some of your favorite grants, and you'll be able to use one of those Grand Collectibles with 4 carbons to blend a rocket potion, and it's going to allow you to continue on this NFT adventure for Series 3. As always, all the funds raised, does go to the matching pool for Season 3. So it's for a great cause, of course. And you'll also be able to accumulate some pretty nice NFTs that you'll be able to use as profile pictures and as banner pictures, maybe even on the Pomelo platform or on your other favorite social media sites. So if you go to harvest.pomelo.io, you'll be able to purchase these carbon, and that's where you'll also be able to purchase the Grand Collectible packs that's dropping next week on Tuesday. And it's also where you can change your avatar on the Pomelo platform. So you'll see there, you can choose your profile picture, and you can choose working on an article that kind of explains all this in detail. But real quickly, if you want to put something as your profile picture, you can choose any of the NFTs from Season 1 of Pomelo NFTs. You can choose the Diamond Pomelos from last season. We've also allowed Boyd avatars to be input there as your profile pic, and also your Eden profile picture as well. And then as for the border, you can have a golden border if you choose a golden Pomelo that you hold, or a blue border if you have some diamond Pomelos. So that's a little recap for Pomelo Season 3. Hope you guys are excited for it. I hope you guys are planning your grants. And yeah, if you have any questions, of course, feel free to reach out to us directly. We've got the Pomelo channel in the Discord server. We've got the Pomelo Playground on Telegram. There's the @PomeloGrants Twitter account that you can follow and hit us up there as well. And of course, we're super available for anyone who wants to talk Pomelo or ask questions.
I have a question. If
Perfect.
I can directly ask. I wanted to message Denis or someone else from the Pomelo team for a while, but I'm always forgetting about it. How long can I claim what we receive through Pomelo?
Hey, that's a great question, and I don't know the
Because
answer.
It makes a difference when it comes to taxation.
That's right.
In Germany, theoretically, you don't have to tax it until you claim it.
Mm-hmm.
So that can make a huge difference. Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, totally. I'm gonna let Denis get in there and answer that question.
Or Daniel, we actually spoke about that today.
Just we're talking about that this morning, yeah.
Maybe Daniel, you can. Yeah.
So right now we've got a soft deadline. Right now, we're trying to encourage people to claim it, but there's right now no plans to end the claim period. What was the deadline? I'm pulling up my email now. We did include a recommended deadline on the email. I don't have that in front of me now, but I'm pulling it up. However, that deadline we put on the email is a soft deadline. I appreciate hearing this feedback about the taxation. We were wondering, I guess, what drives certain people to have delay in collecting. So the taxation is a good one.
The second reason we internally have is that the general mentality in our company is that when working with community funds, we don't want to claim or spend anything until we have delivered something, or something, at least an MVP or something usable already. So that's like the second reason, and something I could think of that others might do the same.
Sure. So on the email we sent out, we were requesting people to claim their allocation by August 26th. So it's still a couple months away. However, like I said, that is a soft deadline. We had a similar deadline posted on our email for season 1. We're actually season 1 claims there's still a few people who haven't claimed from season 1, and they are still able to claim now. So we expect we're going to allow at least a year, really, to claim. So you've got at least a full tax year to I guess,
That's great.
optimize your taxes.
Yeah, that a year would be great, or a year and a day.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's good feedback. So maybe I'll and we're planning right now we haven't set we're planning on doing a follow-up campaign maybe in the coming weeks, reminding people who haven't claimed their KYC yet, and we'll make sure to clarify we haven't settled on what the exact date is yet, but in that follow-up campaign we'll have clear guidelines on when the actual last chance to claim is. So for sure, the folks who still haven't claimed from season 1, we'll be pushing that a little harder, and season 2 folks will have a little bit more time.
Okay. Yeah, really, a year and a day would be great. I don't know how it works in other countries, but it's all with local taxation in Germany. It's all matter of interpretation. And there are rules when you when you hold an asset longer than a year, then it's tax free. And
yeah. Is Joe Louis on this call? He's like the expert on this subject. It came up as part of Yield Plus, for example, to have rewards claimable for that same purpose. Of you could choose, like, let's say you had a pile of rewards and it was the end of the year, you could wait until the following year to claim your rewards, and it like kind of kicks it to the next tax year. There's a lot of situations where this makes sense.
Yeah.
And Gitcoin doesn't give you that option. Gitcoin, they do basically they do an NSIG and distribute all of the matching allocation all at once right at the end of the season. There is no claiming. We asked the community in season 1, what do you prefer? Would you prefer to claim your matching allocation or have it automatically sent to you? And everybody who responded said they would prefer to be able to claim it.
Yeah, and great feedback, Corbin. Thanks for jumping in and asking and sharing that feedback. Such feedback can also be shared in the survey that we were passing along. So if others have other type of feedback, maybe you don't want to just jump in here today, although I encourage you to do so, you can leave that feedback in the survey as well. One thing I did want to mention, Corbin, is that it's very honorable for you to want to only claim once you've delivered on what you promised. But I wouldn't want other projects to feel that same, pressure to deliver before claiming. Pomelo is designed in a way that, projects can get those funds up front and then pay for the development that they've promised, right? So as long as by the next season, in my opinion, as long as the team has delivered what they promised, by the time they apply for the next season of Pomelo, that feels reasonable to me. But very honorable that you want to
absolutely
claim. Yeah,
absolutely. But on the other side, I would personally feel more pressure if we claim, because if we claim and sell it, yeah, I would feel more pressure. I would feel like I need to deliver now and fast and
you need to deliver now and fast regardless, in my opinion. But no, just kidding.
Yeah, the community. I don't think the community can tell very easily whether or not you've claimed. We don't have that in the UI. That's another piece of feedback that we could consider. Would it be valuable to a donor to see the claim status of a grant? Would you want to be able to see whether a grant has claimed their their matching allocation yet. Would that impact your decision on how you donate to them in a future season? Right now, there's nothing in the UI that would indicate to a donor whether or not a grant application has, or a grant applicant has claimed their matching allocation yet. You'd have to check the smart contract and see there, which I doubt many people are doing.
I mean, what probably would be easy to implement, I don't know how it looks on the legal side, something where you can, which would allow projects to claim parts while putting a memo into the claiming action. Like, hey, we claimed 2,000 EOS for blah blah blah. We reached internal milestone XYZ. It would provide a lot of transparency for people who really want to look at the project's development.
One thing to look forward to, so we do have some changes in that sort of category coming for season 3 that I'm looking forward to. This is based, again, a lot of feedback we got from people wanting to be able to, donors wanting to be able to easily tell what was the progress from last season to this season before I make a donation. So when you're opting in to participate in season 3, there's going to be a new field that you'll be required to fill out if you're a returning grant to provide an update on, this is what we delivered since last season. You can see we promised X and now we've delivered Y. And, in that, it's a free form text. So you could type out, we haven't claimed anything yet, or we've, that's something that you would be able to put into your update description for season 3.
Yeah, great. Speaking about surveys and emails, leads into another question on my side. Can I change my email or the Google account that's connected to my Pomelo account?
That is an often requested feature. Unfortunately, not at this time. There's currently no way to, I guess, unless you were to change from their Google account. So if you're logging in with Google, I don't know if there's a way from Google side of things to change the email address on your Google account, but there's no way to change what account you've logged in with currently in Pomelo. It is something on our roadmap, but unfortunately won't be ready for season 3.
Okay.
All right, great. Thanks for jumping in, Corbin. Anyone else want to share some thoughts about Pomelo season 2 or season 3? Anyone here maybe planning on publishing a grant, submitting a grant, or anything like that? I'd love to hear a bit more feedback from you guys. I see that Lars is in the chat. Can I call you out, Lars, and get you to share?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Actually, I was going to just raise my hand, but I'm driving home, so it could be a little bit noisy. But I figured I'd give a quick update of some of the progress I'm making on the Immutable Realm zine. I actually spoke with Lovejoy this morning, and he had a couple of questions for me, and I guess this is a good opportunity to clear up like any confusion. So like when I originally kind of thought up the zine, I kind of thought of it as like an EOSIO zine in the sense that like a lot of the things on the EOS roadmap included interoperability and resource sharing between chains and things like that. So I just want to be clear though, it is not like I'm not using community funds from EOS to like promote any other chain. This is like strictly intended to just be something to bolster and support, the work that is being done on EOS and, do so many of those things that like, more or less, I've always thought of this as a medium to basically take a lot of the architecture and work that's being done on EOS and kind of convey it in stories and comics that are accessible to like people that aren't so deep in the weeds as like all of us are. So like I hate to use the term regular people, but you know what I mean, the uninitiated. And I kind of live in that world, like always have. Like my introduction to all blockchain was basically Steemit back in the day, and I ended up being this person that was able to understand the tech side of blockchain and a lot of the some of the revolutionary technology that like kind of supports all of these things. But like also a lot of my friends are artists, and before NFTs were a thing, like it was really hard to get artists and creatives to really pay attention to blockchain. And that's kind of why this has like always been a perfect thing for me to do this zine, is because I feel like I can kind of reach those people with some of the cool technology that's happening and the possibilities, but keep it digestible. So that's just the first thing I'd like to say. So yeah, this is a strictly EOS zine, but any verbiage that I used in the original grant and everything that may have said EOSIO was not intended to mislead anyone to think that it was going to be, used to promote like Wax or FIO or anything like that. I've done plenty of those sort of comics in the past when I was working with EOS Detroit, but this project is specific EOS related. The other, I guess, update I'd have is I've been talking with Joshua at Eden, and we were kind of through Eden. I shouldn't say at Eden, but that's where I met him. He and I were put together in a small group, and we were talking about some cool applications of like coming up with stories that would be potentially like fictional stories that were reached through kind of a decentralized process, instead of just having like a writer sit down and come up with a whole story, like a way that we can kind of graft a bunch of creatives and kind of reach consensus on like an overall fictional story that could probably be turned into a comic. And then the last thing I have that I don't really have anything to report back yet because I haven't gotten an email, but I just sent it out. I had to really craft this email so it sounded proper. But I'm not sure if anyone in the group or in the chat is familiar with Daniel Schmattenberger, but he's a brilliant mind, and I kind of came upon him through a podcast, and he's just got so many great thoughts on, humanity and systems and how people govern one another and, self-governance and things like that. And I've just wrote this big email and kind of, he had an option where I could actually upload some art and stuff or files. So I included some photos, but I'm trying to reach him and see if I can get a conversation with him. I think he'd be a great mind to sort of share through this medium, because like he is outside of our orbit. And when I say "our," I mostly just mean like the EOS community. He definitely seems blockchain aware, and so I think he'd be a great. But I mean, like he's a very philosophical mind that I think would bring a lot of really good context to like some of the things we're all trying to do and the ways we're all trying to, reach consensus and everything like that. And he might be able to bring some insight. So I've reached out to him. We'll see if I hear back from him. But I'm kind of this whole thing is the process of starting a project like this is usually messy, and that's usually the most fun for me, is like the messy part. And I'm in the messy part right now. The other part I guess I wanted to share was I kind of had some consultation with friends, and I actually think the Immutable Realms zine, before season 3 begins, I'm actually going to break up into 2 smaller volumes. So originally I was thinking about a 32-page zine that would be released shortly before season 3 begins. But the more I've been thinking about it, I may end up doing 2 volumes that would be 16-page zines. That way I can actually get one out like halfway, like through the halfway point, so that it's not just like a huge dump on the end of the period. So I don't know. I'd love to hear feedback if that's something anyone thinks would be a good idea, or if maybe it's a better idea to just do a full 32 pages. But these are some of the, kind of mood board ideas I've had and just things I wanted to share as an update.
I love that idea. I think donors would appreciate seeing, even if it's a small, the small 16-page version, I'm sure donors will appreciate seeing that when it comes time to start donating for season 3.
That's exactly where my head was too, because like, you know, it becomes a bit of a magnum opus if it's like, you know, and I mean, I'm sure when it's released at the very end, it would still be really impressive. But, you know, a lot of our space moves really fast. And I was thinking 2 smaller zines might be, I mean, it'd be the same amount of content, more or less, but it would just be broken up between like maybe 2 smaller chapters or volumes.
Yeah, I'll +1 the vote as well, same as Daniel. Definitely get some content out here as soon as possible. I'm really excited to see it. So definitely, if you want to chop it up in 2 pieces, that seems totally fine by me.
Yeah, right. And there's some other, like, the last thing I'll say on this, and then I'll close, is there's like little ideas I've had for a while that I'll be kind of implementing soon, which are like, I had this one thing I've always been kind of obsessed with is the idea, like the premise of the ship of Theseus and how boards are replaced on a ship, you know, and at some point it's like, when does it become a new ship? I kind of love those sort of thought experiments or like philosophical approaches to things that aren't ships really. And I've kind of really always wanted to do something along that line with EOS, because I mean, I remember when the first token distribution was available, I remember sending thousands of dollars of Ethereum to like a smart contract, and I was relatively wet with blockchain, so I was just like, I'm sure I'm never going to see this again. And I ended up getting on that first token distribution. So I've been here for the whole time as well. And it just, all the iterations that we've gone through as a community and as a chain and everything in general, like it kind of does remind me a bit of the ship of Theseus. And so one idea that I'm exploring is like finishing up this comic that would be like sequential art. So maybe 2 or 3 pages. But what would be cool is to, like, if I end up drawing or illustrating like a ship of Theseus interpretation of like EOS, that can be something that can be even released for free as just, you know, it doesn't have to necessarily be released when the whole zine's out. It could just be a single piece of art. And then when the zine comes out, there would be, you know, basically the story that accompanies it. But that kind of iconic piece of art would be the thing that would, you know, be shareable and, you know, be on Twitter or maybe be available for a certain claim on like an NFT sort of situation, not for sale, but just claimable for like maybe a certain amount of accounts. I don't know. Ideas, you know, these are things I had friends that I kind of consult with on these ideas, but like, yeah, that was the hope, is the kind of like over these few months up until season 3, just release some art that kind of will be companions to like the final 2 issues of Immutable Realms.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
So that's it. That's all I have to say. Thanks for giving me a chance to update everybody.
Absolutely. Thanks for jumping on. Anyone else want to share some comments? See Chris Barnes maybe jumping on here? Maybe not.
It was a mic test. I didn't anything with Lars. What Lars was saying sounds awesome. I definitely encourage that. So I look forward to seeing it. I don't know if that's what you meant by comments.
Yeah, great.
I would come in on this, like, Lars, this is awesome, and I would even encourage you to have a higher frequency than that, just having 16 pages and 32 pages, because like we're having this whole narrative of the new EOS coming up, and like, you know, since like the Bluepapers came up, which are already new boards to the whole ship, right? And because they're the division of where it's going, right? So documenting this and giving this like maybe just 4 sheets of paper and giving it like a visual representation, I think there's so much value in this, where you can build up a following for Immutable Realms over time, right? Because it doesn't really matter if you're putting out 4 pages or 16 pages or 32 pages, because like the art will be appreciated no matter how long your graphic novel will be. But like releasing it over time and making it visible, because every NFT, if you release it as an NFT, will be visible anyway for everyone. But releasing it over time and giving people the chance to appreciate the story and appreciate your art really gives you a chance to grow your community and grow basically attention for this whole thing happening. There's value in this. So definitely, like putting out something before season 3 makes sense for me, and having higher frequency in your releases, and maybe also getting feedback on what happened on these 4 pages and how this gets depicted has value as well. That's just my two cents.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's great feedback.
Yeah, totally, Marty. Glad for you to jump in here, share your feedback. You should stay awake until 3 a.m. more often.
It reminds me a bit of the strategies. There's like the Netflix drop the whole season all at once strategy, or the Apple TV Plus drop 1 episode per week strategy. And I was reading an article about this recently, how a lot of people prefer that, getting everything all at once. But if you look at the data, the shows that drops at 1 episode per week end up being more successful in the long run, because they hold the engagement of the audience over a longer period of time, instead of everyone binging it all in a week and then forgetting about it. You got this sort of slow drip over time that's keeping the audience engaged.
Yeah, I want like another analogy that comes to mind from like that point of view too is like I think of this a little bit, and actually I'm not sure which one I think is more effective. I'm not sure if it really even matters, but there's sort of the Apple approach where like Apple keeps all their shit on lock and nobody has any idea, and all the leaker blogs have to like speculate about what they're doing. Like we've been hearing about an Apple car for like 7 years. And then there's like the Google approach, which is just like everybody gets to see the spaghetti, like the sausage being made, and it's like it's messy, and a lot of times they're very upfront about this might not work, you know. And we've seen them do that with like Google Plus and others. They're kind of, you know, they get to a point where they'll abandon a lot or orphan a lot of these huge projects just because it just didn't do what they wanted. And I don't think necessarily one is better than the other, but as of now, I've been kind of going more with I just wanted to wait until I had something really polished to kind of show off, but I'm leaning more towards I'm just going to start sharing some shit on Twitter and just maybe some sketches and some, you know, because I don't know, people may actually just like to see that stuff being developed. The development process in itself might be, you know, some value.
For sure. And regarding your question about how to distribute perhaps these teaser images or whatever, maybe you can make them redeemable for 1 pop token. Just throwing that out there. We can help
That's a great idea.
We can help you get that set up. Obviously, everyone in here, speaking of pop tokens, you can go into the stream chat and claim your proof of participation token. I see Bam in the chat here asking how to claim POAP. So yeah, so what you do is you simply write your EOS account name in the stream chat with a $ in front of it. That signs you up to the list, and then after the show, I send out some pop tokens to everyone. At the end of the month, there's some raffle tickets. You can enter the raffle to win some prizes. We are going to be increasing the prizes this month. So instead of 5 EOS prizes, we'll be giving out 10 EOS prizes this month. Probably 25 of them or so. Yeah, make sure you claim and collect those pop tokens and get ready for the draw at the end of the month. You can go to blend.gems.io and blend your raffle ticket at any time. I've got I posted all of the raffle tickets for the rest of the year up there. You can only claim the one for the current month at a time. But yeah, you can go out there and claim your tickets whenever you want. And it's now 4 pop tokens instead of 5 to claim them. So if you show up to these shows every week, you'll be guaranteed to be able to enter but maybe want to save some of these pop tokens for some Alar's art as well. So that would be cool, I think. Shout out to our Twitter viewers. We've got 2 viewers on Twitter right now. We've got 8 watching on YouTube. We're up to 48 people in the Fireside chat. Love to see it. Let's see if I can shout out some more people that have joined. Aiden, Bam, Biandria, welcome. Sescam, who else is here? We got Francis, Jay Taylor, welcome. Mark, Stair from Tippett, good to see you here. Maxim Cincinnati, NS James, the legend, is with us. Wreck Kid OG with us. Ronald, nice to see you. We've got Ted Gahal from the ENF. We've got Yves and Zack as well from the ENF. Lovejoy, of course, as well. So thanks for joining, everyone. And if you guys have questions for any of these people, feel free to jump in and ask these questions to these legendary EOS community members. All right. Moving on to some other topics. We had another Bluepaper released this week. Recover Plus Bluepaper was released just a few days ago, if I'm not mistaken. When was it released? Actually, last week, June 17th. So on Friday of last week. Let me share this link for you, for everyone in the stream chats. Got it shared in here, and then in this stream chat as well. Maxim, I see you wrote your account name in the wrong stream chat. So if you look in the stream chat channel, that's where you write the account name. You wrote it in the voice chat, which is new, and our bot is not yet set up to accept entries there. So make sure to write it in the right channel. But yeah, so I shared the link for the EOS Recover Plus Bluepaper. Do we have any of the authors here with us today? I don't think we do. Maybe
No, it's like 4 a.m. in Shanghai. So, although he might be awake, but Francis is not on the call. So Pizza DeFi were the sole authors. But they will. I know this is a topic that'll come up. Francis will be on the AMA tomorrow for Yield Plus, but if you don't speak Chinese, you might not be able to understand it. But he will likely be explaining some of the Recover Plus concepts, even though it's a Yield Plus AMA. And that AMA, don't worry if you can't understand it because it is not your native language. It will be transcribed into English after the fact. But no, he's not on the call.
I mean, Martin's on the call and it's 4 a.m. No excuses. No excuses. No,
well, I'm in another group chat, and Francis is actively communicating about a meeting tomorrow, so he is awake. But I'm not going to ask him to join at 4 a.m.
No, totally fine. I was just kidding. But yeah, so this Yield Plus event is going on tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern. Denis is going to be on there, of course, but. So he doesn't speak. Denis doesn't speak Chinese, but they'll have a translator for Denis. But that's going to be the only translation. That's going to be the only English that's going to be spoken during that event. But like Zack said, there will be an English recap posted eventually about the event, so that everyone can be can follow along eventually. Speaking of Yield Plus. We also had a portal preview this morning shared by Defibox. So let me share this tweet for you guys. I don't know, Denis, did you want to share a few words about this this demo?
The demo, well, tomorrow is the so this is a kind of a pre-screening of tomorrow's AMA. So right now the Yield Plus team is working hard on developing the smart contract, developing the backend, developing the historical TVL Oracle, and also the UI implementation. So this is just a preview of the sort of the prototype mockups. There is still a lot more work ahead to polishing off the Yield Plus project, but we just want to at least share a little snippet of what's currently active, and that way people can kind of see what the team is working on. And tomorrow we're going to be more going in depth with more of the community questions. So there are going to be pre questions that are going to come from already the community, from Twitter or from WeChat or from different social media groups. So there are not going to be questions that people can ask during the AMA. There are going to be pre questions. That way people can have, they can prepare more on the questions that are being asked. And also for me, having English specific questions will help, because I won't be able to answer too much if the question was in Chinese. So.
Great.
And on the topic of portals, so a video of the click-throughs and stuff of the Yield Plus portal was shared on Defibox's Twitter today, but the current version, it's not finished yet, of the EOS Recover portal has been shared publicly for a couple weeks now, but I just dropped the link into the stream chat if you guys want to see what that is. So they're still actively developing it. They're negotiating with some KYC providers currently. But if you happen to have a DeFi project, you could already register now. The registration page is live to get listed on the page. But we'll do some follow-up events or Twitter Spaces or in Discord for Recover Plus. It's just we're just rapid firing these blue papers. We did the podcast for Yield Plus, so that was for the English audience, and then this week is the for the Chinese audience, and then and it came up last week about Korean and other languages, but the issue there is that nobody on any of the teams speak those languages or that language, so we'll just need to rely on the transcripts and translating the transcripts for everyone to be able to consume what was discussed. But as soon as we get through this Yield Plus event series, let's call it, we'll most definitely be doing some on Recover Plus. And when talking about Recover Plus, it's kind of like Yield Plus kind of goes hand in hand with it, because we've mentioned it on these calls before. But for any project that wants to participate in Yield Plus, it is a requirement to be registered as part of Recover Plus.
There you go. Second wave of blue papers. Very exciting. So we've also got a Scalability Plus blue paper that is in the works, if I understand. I know it's not out yet, but hopefully that comes out soon enough. And then we'll have 3 new blue papers: Yield Plus, Recover Plus, Scalability Plus. And before Dario jumps on here and asks me about the Kahoot quizzes for these blue papers, yes, they are coming. But we just want to make sure that all those 3 blue papers are out, and then we'll do back-to-back Kahoot quizzes for those who want to join and those who want to compete with Dario and try to bump him off this leaderboard, top of the blue paper Kahoot quiz leaderboard. I got you, Dario. Don't worry about it.
Did anyone have any, I know it just came out Friday and it's Wednesday, but did anyone actually have a chance to digest the Recover Plus blue paper and have any commentary on it before we move on?
I did not, but I'm hoping someone else did.
Well, I mean, even though this was one of the lighter ones, because it was kind of different. The first 4 blue papers were quite heavy, over 60 pages each. This one was a little bit lighter because the end result of what they're developing, the portal and the registration and the smart contracts are really important components to it. This initially started as, it was meant to be even lighter than it is. It was, I think, originally 12 to 15 pages, but then the Yield Plus blue paper got published, and then it kind of got expanded significantly to kind of be more informative. But it serves as a really great case study of all of the different major hacking incidents on the other chains. So it goes into depth about what happened, and then the response to, for example, the DAO hack, which it had its 6-year anniversary a couple days ago on the day of the Recover Plus. This wasn't actually planned, and I didn't realize it until after it was published. But the Recover Plus blue paper was actually published on the anniversary of the DAO hack on Ethereum in 2016. But it goes into depth about that, the Poly network exploit, the wormhole bridge exploit, Juno, which is a Cosmos-based chain. That they had an issue with their on-chain governance where they had kind of got Cybele attacked and how they reacted to it. So it's a really nice case study on what has kind of transpired on some other chains in these other ecosystems. Because I know a lot of times once you're involved in a particular community, this one being the EOS community, a lot of times you don't really poke your head up too often to see what's going on elsewhere. So I thought that was one of the cool things about this particular paper is the in-depth look at incidences and responses in other chains. And I'm really excited to, once Recover Plus is kind of in production, it's going to be a layer of DeFi that no other chains have. So what sets EOS apart is that it'll kind of have this insurance layer built in. It is not meant to prevent any type of hack or any type of exploit. Smart contracts, nothing's perfect. You don't know about a 0 day until it happens, but there's at least an opportunity to prevent certain things. So EOS will be the only chain that I'm aware of that will have anything like this. So with Yield Plus and Recover Plus, I think it'll kind of lead the way with DeFi 3.0. If you've been following Yves on Twitter, he's kind of mentioned the different layers of DeFi 3.0, and it will have an insurance layer, and that insurance layer will be Recover Plus through the EOSrecover.com portal.
Yeah, baby.
Awesome. Anyone else have some thoughts to share about Yield Plus, Recover Plus? Have you checked out the portal? Do you like what you see? What are you most excited about? Have you been watching the box charts today? It's been doing well. Is that related? Who knows?
1 year ago, this was such a hot topic. Everyone was talking, we need processes in place to do these type of things. And now there's processes that have been laid out, very well researched processes actually, of how to react in the case of an exploit or a hack. And I think we mentioned it on previous Firesides, but they are going to be spinning up their own testnet for the Recover Plus kind of members to do essentially fire drills to practice the reactions. If there's an exploit, how fast could you react? Because that all kind of factors in, because time is of an essence when this happens. But like I said, it's still very early. I wasn't really expecting anyone to have much to say on this. It's only been a few days, and hopefully you spent the weekend enjoying your friends and family. So perhaps in another week or two, we will be able to talk about it more in depth on here, and people might have some feedback. And then I'd say in about 2 weeks or so, I'll have Francis. Francis is bilingual. He's the main author of this, and he's bilingual. So we'll be able to have some really good events for both the Chinese and the English communities for Recover Plus. So looking forward to sharing some of the future plans with everyone at that time.
All right, everyone, you're off the hook. No need to share comments, I guess.
No, we went to Cahoots quiz. I need that quiz, man. I need to win some EOS.
Yes.
One question about the Yield Plus. So I've been having some Telegram chat with someone who doesn't like it, basically, and I'm trying to sort of convince them otherwise. I think it's a great thing, but they've sort of brought this idea somehow in their head that Yield Plus creates an attack vector for EOS, and somehow they're conflating what happened with Luna with this. And to me, they're totally different. But I just want to throw it out there to you, like Zack or Denis. What would you say to someone who says that this creates an attack vector for EOS, the blockchain?
Yeah, well, it's not at all close to what Luna is. So this is just a liquidity incentive reward. So I would have to figure out, or that person would have to figure out what he means by a Luna exploit, because it's by no means a stable token issuance redeemable mechanics. This is a reward system for liquidity. So the effect that this will have is attracting liquidity on chain. So I don't see the attack vector. The downside is we have more liquidity on chain. I don't see the attack vector.
Right. It seems to me the attack vectors are with the individual DeFi applications, which Recover Plus is for. So,
So the system is rewarding active participants on chain. If those active participants are malicious yes, the yield program could have sponsored some liquidity for a malicious platform. That could happen for sure, but the Yield Plus initiatives itself are not an attack vector. It's essentially sponsoring liquidity to be deployed on chain.
Well, even that, yes and no, because in order to participate in Yield Plus, you'll have to go through Recover Plus, and in order to be in Recover Plus, you have to do KYC. So the applications that will be applying to be able to participate in Yield Plus and obtain that extra yield will be known KYC'd individuals as well. I mean, it does limit the likelihood, but regardless of all of this, like what you mentioned, Denis, this is not a stable. This has nothing to do with creating a new coin, having a stable coin. So it's. I mean, I don't even know how to answer that. It's not at all the same thing.
Right. Yeah. Well,
it's really apples and oranges, and one of the effects that I'm surprised that nobody's really talked about is that exchanges will not be what would be the word. Will not be able to participate in this. And so the effect that it will have will actually be getting tokens into the hands of applications on EOS out of the exchanges. That is a huge incentivization mechanism for this to happen. And nobody's really talked about this so far. And the people that have been talking about this have been, for some reason, saying that it does the opposite effect. No, because if you read the Yield Plus Bluepaper, applications will have to meet certain criteria to be eligible to be able to receive, and an application, an exchange, for example, does not meet that criteria.
Correct.
Yeah, so, like, this is a key. So, Yield Plus has significant governance effects that nobody's talking about.
Thanks for bringing that up, Yves. I hadn't even thought of that, but that's an absolutely great point.
So everybody talks about getting tokens off exchanges, but nobody talks about how to do it. How do you actually make that happen? How do you incentivize people to want to participate in the system? Yield Plus is essentially a result of that.
Can you give a rough summary of how that mechanic works? I haven't read the.
Well, if you want to take advantage of extra yield, you would need, so let's say an application, let's call it application A, currently offers 3% yield because they've created a business and they somehow can generate enough revenue. And as part of their business, how would I call that? As part of their means of attracting users, they offer rewards. And let's just say, for argument's sake, that is 3%. But they've also been able to track a certain amount of total value locked, which is what TVL, which is what really Yield Plus talks about, right? In order to determine how much extra subsidized yield you'd be able to get from Yield Plus, the one metric that's looked at in part is how much liquidity you've been able to track. And that liquidity has to be in the form of USDT, EOS, or EOS. So it's not your own token. You can't just create a new token and somehow just artificially pump the price and then get access to this extra yield. It has to be those hard assets, EOS and USDT EOS. So in this scenario, let's say you've created an application, you're able to actually get people to use your application and you're able to offer them yield, and you've got a certain amount of EOS locked or USDT locked. If you meet the different thresholds laid out in the Bluepaper, you would be eligible, and you meet the other requirements, you'd be eligible to get that extra top up from the network. And that top up would come in the form of an extra EOS that is being made available for the application to determine what they want to do with it. Now, the application may determine that it actually needs more money to grow. So it's going to take some of that yield and it's going to pay for further operations to grow their particular product. They could choose to do that, or they could choose to, and be a full spectrum, they could choose to just simply add it all to the already yield programs that they're offering within their application. So let's say that they can get an extra 5%. Well, they would now be able to offer, if they really wanted to, 8% yield, which then would attract more users to come onto that platform. It would incentivize people to move to where there's greater yield. It's undoubtedly right now, we've seen the ecosystem, regardless of EOS, people want yield off of their assets. And Yield Plus is designed to be able to do that. It rewards and incentivizes the applications that are capable of attracting users through their various use cases to be able to come and lock in their tokens in their applications. And then if they do so, they're capable of receiving subsidized extra yield, which then kind of creates that extra incentive for people to participate in those applications. Now, where are those tokens? Well, those tokens are somewhere not in that application. And so when they come to that application, a large part of where they'll be coming from is from tokens being locked up on exchanges. Because a lot of the reasons why the tokens are locked up in exchanges, outside of, let's say, the security and for personal reasons, a big part of it is because they offer great yield. So if you had an alternative of similar or equivalent value of yield, and if you read the Bluepaper, there's considerable amount of pages on this, exploring the different ecosystems, the different blockchains and how they offered it, how they structured it, what is an attractive yield, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then if you're able to offer something similar, but at the protocol level or at the layer, layer, I guess not protocol level, but layer 2 application level within vetted applications that are known, they participate in Recover Plus, et cetera, that would be an alternative, a very good value proposition for users to participate in.
Thank you.
I invite you to go read the 69 pages of the Bluepaper. I know that's a terrible answer, but I think that that's the summary. Is it'll incentivize people. The whole program is designed to incentivize people to incentivize applications. So it's kind of like the B2C. It incentivizes the applications to create the use cases and to incentivize or create the framework and the environment for users to want to participate in those applications by adding yield to the mix, so that there's a very concrete, legitimate reasons why people would want to go to those applications under very strict defined parameters.
And if you're interested in reading the Bluepaper, I just shared the links in the stream chats.
And then none of this has to do with any kind of stable token. So unfortunately for the people that think that may be an attack vector, it's very difficult to answer because it really, it doesn't make sense. It's unfortunately, that's nowhere near in the mix of what's being proposed.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say something you mentioned, Denis, on our podcast we did together, was it actually creates, because there's a cap to how much TVL you could increase before you hit your cap, and you no longer get increased subsidized rewards once you reach a certain threshold. It incentivizes competition in a robust DeFi ecosystem rather than having one lending protocol that has all of the EOS in it. It eventually doesn't get subsidized anymore. So it opens up opportunities to maybe have a second or a third lending protocol that's able to attract a TVL. And it actually creates less of a honeypot, because then instead of having the majority of the liquidity locked up into a single protocol, it's actually incentivizing multiple protocols to pop up. And then if in a worst case scenario, one of them is exploited, and if Recover Plus can't stop it, then it's one protocol out of many instead of like all of them. So it's actually less risk.
Well, and all of this is manual anyways. So to add to that, it's not like the tokens are being generated and automatically output. So there's a manual, very centralized committee process at the Yield Plus level that makes the determination as to whether or not those applications fit the requirements and meet the requirements to be able to benefit from that. And it's really very much in line with all the other initiatives that we're doing, including Eden, Pomelo, the grant framework. It's an opportunity, but this at a different level with different stakeholders for people, or in this case, I guess, entities, applications, to build trust within the system. So Eden allows individuals to be able to make a name for themselves and to be able to benefit from being essentially is compensated by the network. And it speaks to a particular type of stakeholder. Pomelo does the same thing with some overlap with some similar type of stakeholders as Eden, but largely very different. Grant framework, another mechanism. And Yield just becomes another mechanism whereby applications, in this case, build trust within the network and grow their user base and are being rewarded to be able to do so under very strict parameters. It's just another funding bucket made available by the network, designed from a plan that's been researched in tandem with what other blockchains are doing, adapted to our current reality, and powered and amplified by the tech stack that we run, which enables certain functions or features that aren't possible elsewhere.
Yeah, and I can add a few things as well. And the big thing that Yield Plus opens up is it opens up the transparency. So all of these metrics to offer rewards is going to be on chain. The Yield Plus program is on chain. The Oracle for TVL is on chain. Everything is driven by smart contracts. So what this helps is it helps sort of identify which protocols have which assets, which wallets that they have, which liquidity pools and their treasuries. It opens up a lot of these protocols to actually see how much assets they do own in their actual wallets, or actually in the accounts that are managed by these smart contracts. So this opens up a huge avenue of transparency for all these protocols that are signed up. And again, the minimum and the maximum, this is mostly to make sure that we have a diverse amount of ecosystems of protocols. We don't have just one protocol that dominates the whole pie. We have actually maybe 50 or 80 or 100 protocols signed up to the Yield Plus. And that way it creates sort of a diversity of different types of protocols, swaps, lending, options, whatever. And that would create more sort of collaboration between the projects, because as all DeFi protocols know, if you have more protocols available, they can kind of start playing the DeFi Lego blocks and kind of interacting with each other, and they all benefit as there's more protocols online. So no, I'm looking really forward to seeing which types of projects that do apply. And the minimum TVL requirement is actually quite achievable. So it would not limit the sort of small timed projects. It really is trying to get a lot of protocols, let's say in the range of 50 to 100 protocols, to be rewarded in this Yield Plus program. And I think a lot of the projects would be able to achieve that minimum TVL requirement to be eligible to join.
What is the min-max TVL?
Yeah, it would be finalized once we launch, but the proposed one is 200,000 EOS worth of TVL liquidity, up to 6 million EOS, which means that if you have a protocol that is above 6 million, you're capped at that 6 million worth of TVL. So if you have, let's say, 12 million worth of TVL, you would only get paid for half of that TVL because you hit the cap.
Yeah, I like the min-max idea. And when you say 200,000 EOS, so let's say EOS is $1, does that mean in my swap pool I need 100,000 USDT on one side and 100,000 EOS on the other?
Yeah, as long as the sum of all your assets are 200,000, which means
greater EOS worth of
or greater. Yeah, or
yes.
If you can have greater. Okay. But as long as the sum of the two assets, if down the road, whenever we introduce additional assets, all of the sum of the value of the EOS denominated TVL will be counted towards that sort of final TVL number. So each project will have two kind of like final numbers. They're going to have their USD valuation and their EOS valuation. But those can be comprised of multiple different assets.
Great. And then when you say, obviously this min-max system, like you say, encourages a lot of competition. I think that's super healthy for the ecosystem. Is there a total cap on the amount of rewards that Yield Plus can give? Like, if there's only 20 projects, then there's a certain amount. If there's 2,000 projects, what happens then?
There's definitely a theoretic a maximum. This will most likely result in not approving or at least having sort of a limit of approved projects that can come online until there's more funding available for the reward system. So yes, the Yield Plus cannot support 2,000 projects all getting paid, X amount of EOS per day. So there will be a limit to the amount of applicants that would join.
Having said that, the day that EOS has 2,000 projects minimum that have at least 200,000 EOS
Yes.
Locked in is a really great day, and
It's a good day.
Sure.
So
yeah. Totally.
The total amount of EOS being pitched for this is 625,000 EOS per quarter, so 2.5 million EOS per year. So yes, that is the cap currently of how much EOS would be going into these as yield. So yes, if you have more projects, they're sharing the same pool. That pool could grow over time if that was deemed to be of value to the network, but that's currently the recommendation from within the Bluepaper.
Oh, so if there's only 5 projects at the start, they'll be sharing that full 625k EOS to the 5 projects?
No. So it would still be a limit to, let's say, 5%. Okay. Again, another configuration. It can be lowered. It can be increased. So right now, if you meet the criteria, you would then be eligible for a 5% APY liquidity incentive.
Okay.
Regardless of how many projects that join. So at the beginning, what will happen is that the Yield Plus program will have excess amounts of rewards because there'll be, not
enough programs,
not enough projects,
not 50 protocols live. Yeah, so it's kind of a first come first serve type of system for these protocols.
To be honest, like the first come, there's plenty of room. There's
room.
Yeah, nobody needs to rush to do this. If you go look at, and I want to give a big shout out to the Yield Plus writers, the 3 teams that participate in this. The Bluepapers we've always mentioned were kind of like academic papers. They were extremely well written, and the teams that wrote all the other ones did extremely well. Yield Plus took it at a whole new level with the amount of academics that they added within the papers. So there's, I think maybe 10 or 12 pages in a row. It's just charts and it's just graphs of modeling of this and doing actual data crunching from PhD mathematicians on what this looks like, why those parameters are being suggested, what happens, where are the inflection points, where we should be targeting. And then the whole paper itself is also written, big shout out, I don't know if Joe Louis is here, but big shout out, I believe it's Joe Louis that took that on at the end, to go back throughout the whole paper and redo everything in AMA style. So write the citations, write the references for every single quote in there, etc., so that the paper itself is really written as an academic paper. And as much as the others were academic papers, this really takes it up a notch. And so all of the parameters that Denis is talking about aren't just pulled out of the ass of somebody. There's the mathematical, I guess, data modeling and the reasoning and the research that is being provided as well as that, as to where they came up with those numbers, why they're coming up with those numbers. And in the short term anyways, we're not going to be hitting that cap. There's plenty of room to grow. So Denis mentioned on a few occasions, like the target is to have between 60 and 100 projects. That's what the current parameters are set to be able to incentivize. And so we are nowhere near having enough projects to currently fill that gap at this stage. So there's plenty of room to grow.
So Chase Eskim here from Challenge Jack. So for our application with Challenge Jack, we have a good amount of users. We have probably 15, 20,000 users, but in total, we probably have maybe a few thousand EOS collectively that people put into our application. And we let people, move them in and out. So for a project like ours, this wouldn't really be something that would be up our alley, per se, when you have...
Yes or no. I mean, so the Yield Plus program is designed to incentivize people to lock a value on EOS, lock value in your application. Now that you know that there's a program out there that would incentivize you to do so, it will likely change your behavior and how you currently design your applications, so that when you make design decisions in the future, you might do so to incentivize your user base to come and lock in tokens in your application. Because you know that if they do so, and if you meet the current minimum threshold of 200,000 EOS worth of value, that you'd be amplified by the network itself. And so the 1% or whatever percent that you'd be able to offer on your own would now be topped up with what is likely at the beginning anyways, a 5% match. And then through that research, and I believe that that's provided in the Yield Plus Bluepaper as well, the yield that is attractive when we do research on other blockchains is between 8 to 13%. The difference for Yield Plus is that it's not through the layer 2. The yield, that 5%, let's say stable, actually comes from the protocol. And other blockchains offer this as well, but they offer this with a decreasing amount of inflation over time. EOS doesn't have that. So EOS would have specifically geared or specifically created, tokens for that. So it really minimizes who's getting it, and it really empowers people to build the applications and to get users to come and lock in their tokens in their applications. And that filter, or that kind of that resume of when you apply for the job is, have you been able to attract enough EOS within your application? If no, all right, what can you do in order to be able to meet that minimum threshold? And then once you do, then the network essentially rewards you for doing so. And it really goes back to what I said earlier. The effect will be that a lot of the tokens on the exchanges, which legitimately are the exchanges, not talking about not your keys, not your crypto, they are on the exchanges. It will incentivize people perhaps to even buy EOS in order to come and benefit from that APY outside of the exchanges through not just the application, but whatever use case the application provides, like in your case with cmadh, everything else that you're providing to those users.
Cool. Some more questions, actually. This is super interesting. And so, for example, Defibox obviously is the leading DeFi protocol, I think, on EOS. I'm looking at their webpage right now, and they've got, their swap. They've got 8.6 million of liquidity in their swap. They've got 4 million of liquidity in the USN stable token. And
so they'd be capped, right?
Well, so there's a little caveat on that. So it is.
So my question is, do they get rewarded for the swap, and then also for the USN, and then also for the lend, or is that all combined in the Defibox reward?
Yeah. So there is the caveat. It's based on protocol. So what happens is a lot of projects, they do build a lot of different types of things. You can have a project that does 3 different very drastic types of protocols. So, a lending protocol, a stable token, or a swap. So the rewards are going to be per protocol. So if you develop an entirely new protocol, it will not limit it per the team. It will be based on the types of protocols. However, if you try to create 2 swap protocols, then that would not be eligible. If you're making the app twice and you just change the URL to the same thing, that would not count. So as long as they're new contracts, a new website, a different platform itself that operate a different mechanism, like if you're trying to do a lending, if you're trying to do a swap, those 2 protocols would be eligible because it's not per project, it's per protocol.
I was on the impression that Defibox was a protocol, but I guess Defibox is the project. And then they've got their swap protocol, they've got their stablecoin USN protocol, they got their protocol, their
another caveat on that. The USN isn't a valid, I guess, a token that counts towards that value. Right? The only 2 tokens that are supported are those hard assets. So you can't create your token, sell it to your friend for $10, mint 1 billion of them and say, I now meet the maximum threshold, please give me that yield. Those hard assets are EOS and USDT EOS.
So for example, here on Defibox, I see in the lend protocol, they have, 4 million US, but then
that's
some of that might be USN. So some of that might not qualify. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's just the hard assets would be counted. However, down the road, which is essentially the next phase, so once Yield Plus essentially establishes itself, it's stable, we've been operating for a couple months, or then we can introduce additional assets. However, each of the new assets will have a study, will have a risk analysis on figuring out which assets do end up being supported. Do we support wrap Bitcoin, and which wrap Bitcoin? Stuff like that. That will be the next stage, and also assets that are on Trust EVM. Those are maybe the EVM token would also be the second or third assets that we do end up adding. But on the initial launch, it's only going to be EOS and Tether, but open to other assets opening up down the road with sort of risk analysis per asset.
Beautiful. So here I'm looking at the balanced liquidity on the Defibox, and it seems like they've got around 500,000 of USDT and then some USN on the other side. So
yeah, half of that
qualifies for the
and clarification as well. Those are tokens that you need to be owner of, and so they're not proxy tokens. Correct. Right? So, for example, New Dex actually doesn't have any EOS or very, very little.
Very small, yeah. They have some, but not anything that's proxied is not, again, not your keys or not your staked. But it would have to be owned. So the assets would have to be in the account. It can be staked to Rex as long as you are the owner or the account is the owner of the assets on Rex. So you could have 200,000 worth of EOS deposited into Rex or staked for CPU or staked for, but as long as it's in the account, not delegated. So this yield program will not function for the TVL requirements if you delegate your funds to another account. The other account will not have that TVL.
So just to be clear, so limit orders on New Dex, for example, doesn't count towards the TVL for New Dex?
Well, technically it does because they do belong to New Dex. So if you
but there's not that many. That's the thing. So again, it goes back to
there's surprisingly a decent amount. Surprisingly, well, let me see. I'm curious about the number.
But then it goes. So I'm
not sure I understand
Oracle. No, but then it goes back to the Oracle, and it goes back to then the continuous calculation of what is considered as TVL, right? So it is possible that you meet the requirements for half a second. So think of it like the EOS Nation proxy or something like that. So there's the continual check as to whether or not you meet the requirements on an ongoing basis. It could be that you actually get your share for that 0.5 seconds because you met the threshold for that one block, and you get your 0.001 EOS extra. Yeah. Right? So it's an ongoing thing. So it's not you met the requirement and now you no longer meet the requirement, but you're still getting that yield. You need to continuously meet the requirement. And if you grow within that requirement, your yield grows as well. So as you move to the different PAL years or the different levels, if for a period of time you keep fluctuating between level 1 and level 2, that's cool because it would be a continuous pull on the data for those hard assets.
Yeah, you need to.
And the idea or the concepts of, but people will be able to double dip, those have been resolved a long time ago with the proxy pools. So this is not necessarily new tech. This is battle-tested tech over the last couple of years.
Correct. Yeah, and there's every 10 minutes, there's a new sort of data point. So if you do end up moving your assets to another account, trying to game the system, well, the other account will lose its TVL and the other one will gain. You will always most likely only be counted once. Whether it's in one protocol or the other, it would be very difficult to have liquidity twice. There's another thing too is if you are a protocol that is trying to game the oracle, well, that will most likely also be a violation, and you will most likely be denied from Yield Plus trying to game the system or try to game the sort of oracle by doing manipulative liquidity movement transfers. And because it would be on chain, it would be very easy to detect. I don't think anybody will try that, but it will be very difficult.
Go for it. If you want to try it and I catch you.
And just the thing on that.
Same as Pomelo. Just don't do it.
You can. It's on chain, it's recorded, and it will be recorded forever. And as for just for New Dex, they're actually at 100,000 EOS worth of liquidity. So what happens with limit order books is the assets that let's say you want to put a buy order, well, those assets are in their contract pending. So they would be
at any given time, yes,
halfway there to be eligible.
But I was bringing New Dex as an example of people can think, for example, that a DEX actually would be a natural fit for this, and they'd be at the top end, or at the they'd be capped. When in reality, it's the complete opposite. Those assets are in order books for a very short period of time, and there's always order book assets in the order book. And obviously, if the growth of the EOS increased, if we went back in history and we looked at the the times where there was a lot of activity on chain, clearly they would have had more TVL,
For sure,
but it's not a given. The idea is that it's not a given. So this really needs to incentivize people to create applications that incentivize or that reward or that, as part of your business requirements or as part of your strategy, incentivizes people to lock in their tokens. And so we get EOS tokens out of circulation into applications, into the hands of the builders, into the hands of the community, outside of the exchanges is a big key component to this.
Correct.
All right. Final question. Just, I want to make sure I understand this correctly. So you said proxied EOS doesn't count. So, for example, the EOS Nation proxy would not qualify for.
Correct.
You don't actually have EOS, so no.
Exactly.
So when
I go look at Proxy for Nation, the account, it has, I don't know how much, but it has 0 EOS in it. Those EOS do not belong to you. That's not TVL. Right? Those are the staking rights to the tokens, but it's not the actual token.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
But if a DeFi application took their balance and proxied to a proxy, that would qualify. Is that right?
Correct, because they're the owner of
different.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So, it seems like maybe it's complicated, but for those building applications on EOS, this is, pretty vanilla, easy stuff.
Yeah.
And for the users, all this is abstracted. It doesn't matter. So you go to your favorite application and they now just suddenly offer you more rewards.
Number go up.
So they do the same use cases. They still offer you the same value, but on top of this, because they've done a good job in attracting enough TVL, they now can offer more reward. And it really is just a catalyst to incentivize more users to come and deploy on EOS and to get their tokens in the hands of the actual builders.
Correct. It's really trying to aim so that the reward system is a general purpose reward system for liquidity specifically. But that way it does not limit your possibilities of which types of protocols you want to do. So if you want to build a stable token platform, go for it. If you want to build a leveraged, 3x leverage swap pool, go for it. It does not limit the types of protocols as long as they're. It
would even be something like, for example, I don't know what the numbers are, but something like Vigor, or it could even be a wallet if the wallet actually was custodian of those tokens. If you were offering a service and you're able to track that TVL, that would be something that the network would effectively decide to reward you with, or reward you for, sorry.
Yeah, and let's say long-term staking pools. You can have what Dan was proposing with Block One. Essentially, has the code out for having 30-day locking pools. That would be eligible. So there is even code out there that anybody can kind of grab and pick up and build something. So the sky is the limit. Let's say for which types of applications can join. And that's what we really wanted to build with Yield Plus, is that it does not limit the applicants. It's the same thing with Pomelo. You can submit a grant. You can submit any idea that you wish that you want to do. So it's very similar to Yield Plus. But yeah, looking forward to answering any questions, and also if there's anybody that have holes in the idea, definitely bring them up. We've essentially been talking about Yield Plus for I don't know how many months so far, but many months, almost a whole year. So we've really brainstormed a lot of the scenarios. Initially there was thoughts about trying to build, Olympus DAO or a Luna type of token that was actually brought up. I think it was even Zack that was bringing, what if we build a Luna?
Hey!
We're not gonna.
Why you gotta blow up my spot?
I think it was. It was like, what if we build a Luna? You're like, I don't know. I don't know about the mechanics. I don't know if it's going to work out. But again, it was not trying to build a specific program, or not to build a specific protocol. It was to reward the ones that are building on EOS. So it's very general purpose.
To create a program. Yeah, that's exactly right. So it was to create a program just like the other Bluepapers. Go out, look in the wild. What are other people doing? What's successful? What isn't working? What could we do? What would that look like? So it's less of a, here you go, do this. It's more of a, here's what we could do and what that would look like. Do we want to proceed in that direction? here's data backing, here are different options that we could go with, or here are different directions that we could go in, here's what other people are doing, here's what the data shows, etc.
Really exciting stuff, guys. Really enjoyed this conversation today. I learned a bit more about the intricacies of Yield Plus, even though I did go through the Bluepaper. I did watch that Let's Talk Yield Plus video. Still learned a bit more today. And
the Yield Plus Bluepaper is one of the densest Bluepapers, but it's also one of the ones that speaks to users more so because people can see themselves in Yield, or it's an interesting subject for them. But definitely, it's a heavy paper to read.
By reading the Yield Plus Bluepaper, I mean scrolling through most of it and reading some of the text. But
and stopping at the pictures, right?
They really exactly.
No, but even the pictures, Chris, even the pictures are kind of hard to read, so it's not even good.
That's true.
It's even heavy for the ones that wrote it.
It's pretty heavy.
But it's good. It covers a lot of the angles that we wanted to cover, and also on top of the regulation, there's a lot of aspects that we need to think about. But yeah, definitely looking forward to diving into the implementation and seeing if people have sort of ideas of improvements or indeed ideas of preventing types of behavior. So definitely looking open for all the questions for that.
And for those who are new this week or haven't heard before, in the Bluepaper, there are a few recommendations in terms of next steps. So one of them is the smart contracts, and the other one is the portal. We've mentioned previously that even prior to the Bluepaper being output, because there's a translation process, branding process and such, when it was presented to the NF has already greenlit the work on the smart contracts in the portal, and that has already begun a little over a month ago. And the aim is to have the smart contracts and the portal itself being live in time for when September comes and EVM launches as well. So it's not theoretical as to whether or not this work is being done. It's already underway.
All right, let's wrap it up there for the Yield Plus section, which turned out to be over an hour, I think. But that's great. I really enjoyed the conversation. And thanks for everyone who participated in the conversation. Thanks for Denis for being here every week and having some clear, concise answers to my questions. And really good work to everyone on the Yield Plus team so far. Excited to see all of that launching. What is the launch date actually? Is there a target date right now?
As soon as possible. Yes, there is a date. So there are milestones. So caveat as well. So when the ENF assigns work, ever since we've been able to grow the capacity in-house to be able to actually manage projects, which we weren't able to do when it was just Zack and I, for obvious reasons, with just two people. Everything that we do now, similarly to the grant framework, is based on milestones. So when they reach certain milestones, which have been defined within the scope of work, then they receive compensation for that milestone. And according to the current roadmap, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe that it's roughly August or so set to be done. And end of August or so. So it's supposed to be roughly end of August, early September, give or take. I just don't have the date in front of me. Cool. And that's if everything according to plan.
Swear to God, that was my last question.
And so far it's on track. So the development, there's no blockers. The only blocker is just putting the hours and developing and building the UIs, building the backend, building the smart contract, adding test cases. There's also the auditing. So the team that we will be using for the initial audit, they will most likely be multiple audits down the road, but the initial one that will be doing it is Sentinel. So they've confirmed that they are available actually end of the month. So they should be joining or at least having a look at it. It will be a multi-week process for the audits. And even after an audit, usually there's more work after the audit because the audit finds things and then you have to go back. So that process will probably be a month or so of back and forth with the auditors, but that will be starting soon. And looking forward to getting the audit team on the smart contracts. So we're getting it's on pace.
And you bring up an important point, Denis, talking about audits, so that people know. This is kind of just general knowledge. When people say that they've done an audit, I think it's really important. There are multiple considerations, or I guess, and it's not you do an audit and it's done. And so when you're talking about smart contracts that are continuously being stress tested, and when you're talking about assets being locked and value being transacted and such, Denis just mentioned that it's the first audit, but it won't be the last. With this type of, or with DeFi smart contracts, and what we've seen in the larger blockchain space is that it's not a question of when, or it's not a question of if there is going to be a hack. It's a question of when. When is the next one? There's always a next one. And so it's really important that if you do have smart contracts that are out there and you have the capacity and you've got a user base and you've got usage of your smart contracts, at some point you inevitably become a target. And so it's really good practice to continuously do audits on your smart contracts. And some of them might be full audits where you go back from A to Z and you re-employ, or you employ a new company that's never looked at the smart contracts. So it's a fresh pair of eyes. And others, it'll be simple as anytime you would make upgrades or changes to your smart contract, you'd get the original company, for example, that did the audit to come and re-review, do a small audit again, obviously audit the code that is now being proposed to be updated and such. So the auditing process is not a one-off, it's done. It's a continuous process of auditing.
And another thing on the audits, this is more for community members. Even if there is an audit, it does not mean that the contract is safe, because the audit could be failed. It could have ability described in the audit. So when you're reading an audit from a smart contract, you actually have to go through the audit and see if there's actual vulnerabilities, because what will happen is an auditing team will create the audit, but the audit could have failed, or it could have known vulnerabilities that the team chooses to keep or not to keep and fix. So there are some projects
things too, right? Which is possible as well. And so that's why it's really important. It's a never-ending thing. So the audits, the open sourcing, the nulling of keys. It's unfortunate the voice shut down because I'd written an article about it a little over a year ago. But the idea is that all these different components don't remove risk. They minimize and they mitigate risk to increase the trust within the application, but we're still dealing with software. And so things can inevitably still happen, which is why Recover Plus comes in. If you've met those thresholds, if you've met the requirements, and you've tried to do as much as you can, and you've tried to do what you could in your power to mitigate that risk, and something still happens, what happens then? What does the network do then? What do the applications builders do then? And that's really what Recover Plus aims to address. It's not the if, it's the when something happens. And maybe a particular smart contract never gets attacked and all is good and it's completely fail-safe, that's fine. What we do know is that it's just a question of time until a smart contract somewhere again gets hacked. And part of the Recover Plus is to incentivize white hat hackers, because there is tremendous value in getting people from the community and very specifically technically proficient individuals within our community to review contracts and to highlight potential issues that they can find, because auditors can only do so much. They're at some point, having thousands of eyes on something is always beneficial if possible. And so the idea of being able to incentivize white hat hackers to come through and share any potential vulnerabilities and then get compensated for that is part of the system as well. And that's something that we've lost over time in EOS, because maybe if we can mute this individual, sorry. It's something that we've lost over time, because for a period of time with EOS, for the EOSIO protocol itself, we actually had the formal bounty system, and that closed down. And we no longer have a means for white hat hackers to be able to be compensated for finding vulnerabilities, which actually is counterintuitive. It incentivizes people to hack and try to and basically not play within the system, because there is no system to play in. And so reigniting those functions and those features, although they might seem counterintuitive, white hat hackers play a crucial, very important role in a healthy ecosystem. And Recover Plus talks about that as well.
All right, one more question, but it's not from me. It's from Aaron Cox. Actually, Aaron, did you want to jump on here? Or is or your audio not working?
I don't even know that it's a question. More of just a comment. I mean, this is a large focus on third-party yield generation, and I really want to see a focus on yield generation that's controlled by the network and secured by the network. I'm assuming there are no requirements to surrender contract permissions from these contracts to BPs or to MSIGs, are there?
No, they would. So the MSIG requirement, they would be essentially, the permission requirement would be up to the team, but it would be up to the community members that want to participate to know the permission structure of that contract.
And that's probably beyond
that. It would also be so it would be the committee that reviews and approves whether or not a particular application meets the requirements to be able to enjoy that yield. Yes, that's where that would happen, Aaron. Yeah. As part of the requirements, right? As to whether or not, oh, did you do this? Did you do that? All right, are you? So this fits within that picture. So no, that's abstracted away from the community. The community doesn't need to do that part. Yes, in terms of just adding liquidity to Rex, that's something that we've talked about for a really long time. Yeah. And ultimately, where we are right now, we ran the numbers quite a lot. We did a lot of modeling off of this. Part of the issue with just putting rewards into Rex is that it's not directed. It doesn't incentivize any particular type of behavior. And the largest benefactors of that are the exchanges.
Right.
And so it kind of is counterintuitive to part of the other benefits to this program. Notwithstanding this, though, it is possible that in 6 months, in a year's time, that the ecosystem is healthy enough to be able to then want to direct a certain amount of yield to Rex directly, because of this catalyst of Yield Plus actually has attracted a lot of users. We're just not really there yet. But yes, that was looked into for sure. It's too broad, and it doesn't incentivize a particular behavior.
Yeah, and that is just an example. I put dumb example in my message just for that very reason. I don't know that funneling inflation into Rex is smart, but the fact that Rex is secured by the BPs and is like, when you put your tokens in it, it is a system contract. There's a level of security above and beyond any program that's going to participate in Yield Plus that they're just not going to be able to achieve.
There's still
and it's
very
not
much
going to make
risk.
it feel as safe.
For sure. And I would say Rex is likely the most secure smart contract that we have because it's at the protocol level. It is still, however, I guess there's still a risk, but inherently the risk is almost non-existent. But you're right that at the application level, there's definitely a level of risk that doesn't exist at the Rex level, for sure.
Yeah. Well, one of the things with Rex is it does benefit from on-chain activity. So if EOS does have an increase in activity, like a 50 or 100x increase in activity, those power-up fees will actually start racking up really quickly.
Absolutely.
So that's sort of...
Yeah. Having said that, just caveat for everybody, it'll still be minimal at this point. So don't expect that to change very much. But yes, that is part of it.
But the yield is actually quite small right now, but it is... Power up right now is the majority of the revenue from Rex. So I think it's about, it's almost
200 EOS per day. It's a joke.
Yeah, well, but power up is the main driver of Rex reward. Yes. That's sort of what I'm saying. So if we had increased activity on chain, the single driver of the Rex income would come from power up. So that could equal 5x, 10x, who knows? But yes, it would still be minimal. But that would be a way to increase Rex income by having more on-chain activity. And
another
that would be
point to mention.
Those would be
go for it.
Well, those would be real fees, right? Those would be not inflation. Those would be on-chain activity. So it's much healthier to be earning income through actual chain fees.
another point to mention, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the majority of the applications that do have TVL right now actually go through Rex as well. And like Denis mentioned earlier, those would be counted. So we already see that the behavior of the applications is to lock up the tokens that they do have under their custodianship in Rex to add that security feature. So by default, what you mentioned is kind of already happening, but it's not forced. It is just the natural. It's kind of like having Rex as your cold wallet and having a certain amount in your hot wallet. The application being the hot. So that is already happening. That's the behavior we're already seeing.
That's a good question there, Aaron, or a good comment.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about this probably late last year. It might have been around the time of the first Eden election or shortly thereafter. But generating new events on the network that can put revenue into that fund as a healthy means of, providing a yield that's not through inflation. So it would be really cool if we had some sort of community effort to drive that as well, where it's figuring out what the network can offer, what's a fair cost for it, and how it gets distributed back to token holders, essentially. And maybe the reimagining of Rex overall. Maybe Rex, as it exists now, evolves into Rex 2, and it is now something more similar to staking pools or something along those lines.
So that is happening, Aaron, but the way that it's happening, think about it differently. So it's the same thing. So I talked about how Yield Plus, nobody's really picked up that one of the effects of that, if successful, is going to be getting tokens off of exchanges. Now, we're not going to say that that's the purpose of it, but that's clearly something that will happen through Yield Plus.
Yeah.
The adding of tokens through Rex will happen through, if, again, this is a big if with the premise, but if EVM is successful, because EVM will require the usage of EOS tokens in order to operate. And so you're accomplishing the same thing of filling Rex through usage on chain through a particular application, which is something that you have control over versus just dumping tokens in Rex. So you incentivize the behavior that will lead to what you're looking for without necessarily having to do the thing that you're looking for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And those should be thoroughly considered.
So Yield Plus and EVM, both of them, if successful, will be generating a lot of activity on chain, which will effectively bring the yield in Rex up, which then also creates another reason why the applications would want to put the tokens that they have under their custodianship in Rex, because then they can amplify. And not only do they offer 3%, they get to bonus with the 1% in Rex or 2% in Rex, which unlikely, but still. And then they get to add on as well, let's say the 5% from Yield Plus. Then it starts to get attractive because all of these initiatives have been designed to work with one another.
Yeah.
Which is very different than just saying, let's take inflation and put it in Rex.
Oh, absolutely. And that's not at all what I'm proposing, but that was just the dumbest and I think most easy example to highlight as a contract that is of this higher level of security.
And you're right that right now the purpose of Rex is, or I guess they're whether it's Rex 2.0 or something like that, that function in the system is somewhat of a legacy of a previous resource system that we're no longer leveraging. And that hasn't been adapted over time. And there's been talk of some things, but really this is a major overhaul. I mean, Rex is really key to the protocol. And so that will require a lot of design thinking, architecture, and then this is not something that happens overnight.
Absolutely.
But you're right that we're kind of stuck with something that we don't really use, or that it's not being used in the way that it was intended because the system has changed and that's no longer relevant.
Yeah, nobody rents resources from Rex anymore.
Correct.
Well, some do, but that's
very. Yeah.
And this is changing gears slightly, and I know we were trying to wrap this topic up, but we're talking about the removal of tokens from exchanges. What is to prevent an exchange from utilizing these applications that are taking advantage of Yield Plus?
nothing, you can't really prevent somebody from making.
Right.
I don't know. Let's take Uniswap, or let's take Anchor for example. If you're able to log value, and then the exchange comes knocking on your door and says, "Hey, can I somehow, piggyback off of you?" I guess there's nothing stopping from that happening. But the exchanges themselves would not be able to apply.
Most exchanges only participate in native staking, and that goes for any other protocol or block or layer one. That's not to say that they don't sometimes partake in DeFi, but I think after what we've seen with Celsius and having an oversized position of staked ETH of Lido's version, I doubt that you're going to see any exchanges risking their users' liquidity to put it in a DeFi protocol. They'll stake it into Rex, sure. They'll do the proxies, but I don't see them, for example, staking them into Defibox or into Pizza or wherever. And then the other piece of this is that there's a cap for the liquidity also into each protocol. So I don't have the number in front of me.
But they could as well, right? Let's say they did stake into an application like Defibox or something like that. Those tokens would now be DeFi boxes, though.
Yeah.
Right. So yes, then it would require, and then no, there's no way of preventing all right, let's write a contract in the real world to say that those tokens actually are ours, and we're going to direct them to do X, Y, Z. No, there's no way of preventing that. The likelihood, though, that it is valuable enough for them to do so is quite low. But no, there's nothing preventing that to happen.
All right. So it's a risk-reward thing.
Yeah, so likely the tokens on the exchanges will remain. First of all, a lot of the tokens on the exchanges belong to the exchanges. I know people like to think that that's not the case. The reality is the asset EOS has been decreasing in value for 4 years straight. The largest market makers are the exchanges themselves. The owners and holders of those EOS tokens on the exchanges are the exchanges. They bought your shitcoin that you sold to them. They are holding the token that you did not want. That is why they have it. They're not holding your token and they're doing whatever with your tokens. You sold it to them because you no longer wanted the EOS. That's the big elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about, but that's the reality. What this would likely do, if successful, is incentivize people to start buying EOS again. And the exchange would still be offering rewards on the exchanges, but now you'd have an alternative at a similar yield rate that the exchanges are currently capable of offering, because for them, it's simply a customer acquisition cost. And so offering yield programs is something they do for every chain. It's a means for them to have control over the tokens and or for them, for their own tokens, to be able to generate yield off of them, as well as the fees, trading fees and such. But this would now offer an alternative at a very similar level outside of that. So it's not going to remove all tokens from exchanges. The exchanges are the largest market makers. A big part of why they have those tokens there is because they are the market maker. They make fees, or they make off of the fees of running those pools, essentially. And then that just creates competition, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It can start reverting the trend that we've seen. So instead of having the downwards pressure, it can start creating upwards pressure because then there's incentive to do so.
All right, 2 hours in and we've covered 2 topics so far. I just alerted my girlfriend to not wait for me for dinner. I don't know how long you guys still want to go for, but I've got some more topics to discuss. Are we done with Yield Plus, or are there more things to discuss? I mean, I'm enjoying the conversation. I definitely don't want to stop the conversation. If you guys have more comments or questions, clearly you guys are enjoying it. We're all-time high of more than 50 people now in this Fireside chat, which is more than we've had so far today. So clearly people are interested in the discussion. You guys are staying here, so that's great to see. Maybe, okay, cool. So let's talk about some other topics. Some rapid fire topics. Trust EVM. Haven't talked about Trust EVM yet today. There was a nice tweet this week by the ENF and by Yves about a new project called CO2 Zero. that is going to be launching on Trust EVM, which is cool to see. I encourage you guys to go check out those tweets, retweet, share the good news. There was also a Trust EVM Twitter Space event that happened last week. I think it was Friday, perhaps. It was great to see Esteban, which is a developer that's working with Trust EVM. He's really hyped on the product. He thinks, he feels like it's one of the best EVM product that he's tried, so and he's excited to deploy his products on there. So if you guys have not checked that out, I encourage you to go listen to that Twitter Spaces event. You'll find the recording on the EOS Network Foundation Twitter account.
It was on the Trust EVM. It was like its own thing. So it's on the Trust EVM Twitter account. But there's also the links were shared in the chat, but I typically prefer to read things rather than watch or listen to them. So I'm going to drop in the stream chat the transcript of the spaces, and in that blog article they probably link to the YouTube. So Trust EVM, I guess, they must have just launched a YouTube. So this is the first video on their YouTube, is the event. But if you want to listen to it, it's on their stuff. The ENF, like we'll probably need to keep doing this, but it is its own unique independent project. So yeah. But I agree. What you said with Esteban, oh my God, that was the first time I actually ever heard the man speak. So I've been cheering him on and watching him do his thing in all of these like developer chats. But whenever I sat in on the AMA while it was live, it was really nice to hear someone so enthusiastic. And anyone who's been in the EOS community for a really long time, you've been through the ebbs and the flows and the ups and the downs, and you might not be as enthusiastic as you were maybe when you first entered the ecosystem. But this guy just entered the ecosystem. He said he saw something mentioned about the Trust, or the EOS EVM at the time, mentioned on Twitter somewhere, and it just piqued his interest. And when he was on the AMA, and I shared the transcript, he was talking about how the EOS community and the Trust EVM community is so like exciting and supportive, which is, if you talk to someone who's kind of been here for the last 4 years, might be a little bit more burned out and have a different opinion of it. But man, that was my biggest takeaway. Anyone who was on the live AMA with me, I was probably private messaging you about how awesome it was to hear this guy. And the other speaker was Marius, who's El Mato, who's been part of the EOS community since day one. He's the technical lead on the EVM. And one of the things that I enjoyed from listening to him speak, because nothing was like planned with their answers or anything. It was pretty off the cuff as far as what I could hear. But he did a really good job at explaining something that Areg touched on last week on this Fireside chat when we were talking about Mandel 3.1 and how Areg, and it's in the documentation too, but there were certain intrinsics that were part of the Mandel 3.1 release, and it enables things like pre-compiled contracts, which make the EOS EVM the fastest. It'll help it be the fastest EVM. But he went into detail about that and how there's actually there's upgrades that were in the Mandel 3.1 release, and the Mandel 3.1 launch on mainnet is scheduled for September 23rd. So it'll be live on mainnet before the Trust EVM launches, because it relies on these new intrinsics and precompiles. But Mattias did a really good job at explaining this. Areg also did a really good job of explaining some of it last week. And it also opens up the door for implementations of things that don't currently exist yet on EOS, but are being done by projects, and not in the same way, but projects like ZOES with privacy on EOS. Some of these intrinsics that were installed were part of the Mandel 3.1 release actually opened the door for things like ZK snarks, for example, on EOS or on the EVM. So that's pretty exciting. But that was all I explained. That's what I liked about the event personally, was the explanation of how it'll be or why it'll be the fastest EVM, and talked about how certain upgrades in the protocol itself are being made to ensure that. And then Esteban, his excitement, it was very infectious, and it got me excited. Like there's nothing new about the EVM that I'm probably not already aware of. So I went into this event just expecting to kind of hear things and not be too surprised by anything. But I was personally surprised because I couldn't have predicted that. The excitement and the enthusiasm. And this is someone who worked on other EVMs, worked on Binance Smart Chain, worked on Ethereum. And he just stumbled upon the EOS EVM, and he just fell in love with it. And the other thing that he did that surprised me was he was super enthusiastic about soulbound tokens also, which are something that Vitalik brought to light not too long ago. In May, he was blogging and writing tweets about it. And hearing Esteban talk about how he's really excited about that is cool too, because this is something, when we talk about getting ahead of the latest trends, I don't know if the soulbound tokens are actually going to be a next trend. But I do know that if you want them to be successful, that you need someone who's passionate about it to kind of be the driving force behind making it actually happen. And if these soulbound tokens are something that will get more interest in the future, it's nice to know that there's someone within our own ecosystem who's equally as excited about them and equally excited about deploying them on the EOS EVM also. So that was a great event from my standpoint.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that color, Zach. And what are soulbound tokens for those like me who don't know?
Basically, they're NFTs. Yeah, it's an NFT that's associated with your identity, but there's a huge gap in reality. Okay, yeah, you could explain if you go for it.
So to make it super simple, so they don't necessarily need to do with identity, but that would be an obvious use case. It could be, for example, that you are over 6 foot tall, and that's the attribute that's linked to that soulbound token. That token would be non-transferable, and so it's something that you own that proves identity or that proves ownership of something, whatever that attribute may be. And it would be used to open the doors. Like a good example, concrete example would be when you go to a pub and you get, I don't know, a bracelet or a stamp on your arm to be able to showcase, once you're inside the pub, that you are of legal drinking age. Well, a soulbound token could do that. It would be the proof of, by the way, you don't need to see how old I am. You don't need to see my ID, but there's somebody somewhere that's authenticated that attribute. This token attests to that. And it is mine. I can prove that this is mine. And so, yes, there's obvious linkages to identity, but they expand it well outside of identity. I really encourage people to go look into this. They will open up a lot of the functions or features that will be useful for things like Pomelo, for Sybil resistance, for Eden, for being able to prove authenticity of someone in various ways. And so they're really exciting on that front.
Okay, cool.
Well, maybe Pomelo is already working on these types of type tokens.
Are we?
Soon, we are. You are.
Intent.
You are, yes. Well, Eden is also. Voice kind of was for a period of time, but yeah.
Exactly. So a lot of these mechanism, like Pomelo has sort of mechanism. There might not be as transparent, or as people might not know, but we are connecting, user account and behaviors. And just an example, like the top donors of Pomelo, that can never be unchanged for season 1 and 2. So yeah, I think soon to come, I think there will be soulbound Pomelo type tokens.
Ooh. And what's really cool with this, obviously the name is pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
But something else that's really cool is that I don't know if, no, that's not the link you shared. Zack just shared a link from Vitalik, but the organization that started writing about this is called Radical Exchange. That organization is the same organization that did thank you, Zack, that did the that expanded on the ideas of Vitalik for quadratic funding. So that's Radical Exchange, which is underlying Gitcoin and Pomelo. So the same organization that worked on that. So it gives a link to Vitalik again. It gives a link to a concrete use case. It opens the door, and we have somebody in the house now that's passionate about this, like Zack mentioned, towards something that we've now seen has organizations and people behind it that might be able to actually push this idea forward. So if we attach ourselves to something like that, if the opportunity presents itself, this potentially could be quite beneficial to EOS to explore, or for Trust EVM to explore going down that path and being one of the chains leading the implementation of this particular concept.
Great, and that actually kind of answers B. Andrea's question that he asked about an hour ago in the stream chat, saying that the EOS mainnet could benefit from the presence of some NFTs, you know, that gives the owners some benefits by holding them, access to events, chats, etc., special tools. So I guess this is kind of in that line. Right now on EOS, we do have the Pomelo NFTs, gives you, you know, profile picture privileges, but it's mostly cosmetic. There's the Boyd avatars that the Boyd team has said that they're going to be required in order to access more Boyd universe applications in the future. And now we've got some discussions around soulbound tokens as well. So that's interesting to see that it's all coming together. Hopefully that answers a bit your question, B. Andrea. Let's see in the stream chat, did we have any other topics brought up by some people?
Yes, Aaron provides really good. It's important to note that soulbound tokens are just a theory at the moment. They're possible in practice as far as I can tell. Correct. This is still very much an idea. Well, yes and no. I wouldn't say it's that sour. There are potential implementations of them that we can see, but it's still very much at the forefront of what's being done on blockchain as a whole. And that's what's exciting about it, is that if we could position EOS and if we have people within the community that are passionate about this, if this becomes a thing, EOS could be one of the places where that type of technology and that type of whatever pioneering tech comes from.
Good stuff. Continuing here on the chat, we have Jay Taylor asking some questions about the Eden July 9th election, and he's wondering if that's postponed or not. I'm not up to date on that topic. I don't know. Do we have any Eden chief delegates in the house right now? Don't think so. Chris Barnes is not with us here anymore either. So I'm not sure we'll be able to answer your question at this time. Jay Taylor?
I did. This is Dogman here. I spoke with Michael O'Sullivan during the town hall on Sunday, and he said that they are aiming to and planning to have the election still on July 9th. So it's not 100% sure, but he thinks they'll be able to do it.
Great. And
from what I remember,
that July 9th is Saturday in 3 Saturdays. So in about 2.5 weeks. So for those of you who are Eden members, remember to sign up to that election. All right. Okay, cool. Let me go check my list of topics, see what we've got here. We talked about Trust EVM, CO2 it's good stuff. I guess in the same kind of vein as the hype, the Esteban hype for Trust EVM, we also have some hype from Matthias, who's been working on ZOES. So they've been double recipients of Pomelo grants, season 1 and season 2, and they just released their white paper. And I had a nice little tweet here I wanted to share. This tweet is actually from Yves from a few days ago. I'll share it in the chat here. Yves says, ZOES is an exciting project that brings private transactions to EOS. Congratulations to Matthias and ZOES team on the milestone. I'm especially excited to see your progress after you went through 2 seasons of Pomelo grants and the community, EOS community rallied behind you. And then Matthias replied, thank you, Yves. I'm blown away by the support I received from the community. Thanks to Pomelo grants, I'm now able to develop full-time for EOS. Definitely worth a few air horns. Love to see these types of success stories. And if you check out the @ZOES on EOS Twitter account, you'll be able to find some updates, including the white paper that they released 2 days ago. So if you're interested in privacy on EOS, definitely check out this Twitter, follow them, and read the newspaper, the white paper. Okay, what else did we have here? We had a very interesting tweet actually from Yves again, but regarding OCI hiring some EOS devs for a new metaverse game. So I'm not sure what these metaverse games imply. I'm sure Yves would share more if he can. I don't think he can at this time.
Just that has nothing to do with us. I don't know what they're talking about.
Okay.
So it's not that I can't share. I believe that's another project that they're working on, which isn't ours, that they just added in there, which is great. But
cool, yeah.
It is nothing to do with the ENF, as far as I know.
Yeah, they're hiring EOS devs, which is great. They're building something for EOS, but they have other clients. Like, I guess the Metaverse project is not any way, shape, or form related to the ENF. And I personally don't know what the project even is. They're kind of under their own working agreements with anyone that they contract for, so it'll probably be public when it's public. But yeah, completely separate, but great that there's companies hiring EOS developers. That's the bigger news, is that there's multiple projects hiring. Every team that participated in some of these working groups, especially the ones that have continued work, or the teams that are bidding for the RFPs through the coalition. Like, there's so many teams hiring right now. I know EOS Nation, you guys hired a bunch. I know Aaron, I believe, is still trying to increase his technical team from last I've spoke with him. And there's many other teams as well. So to see yet another team who's not a block producer, not like they've been in the EOSIO ecosystem for a while, but not so publicly in EOS. But to see them hiring EOS specific smart contract developers for some game is quite exciting, because I'm looking forward to finding out what that game is.
Yeah, me too. So the tweet from @Object Computing, which is the OCI Twitter account, it says, "Would you like to work on projects like these every day? Advanced EOS smart contracts, popular metaverse game, blockchain-based exchange, trading assets based on asset characteristics." And they encourage people to apply today. So that's super exciting. I'm really looking forward to see what this metaverse game that they're building is all about. Whether it's from an existing project on EOS, or maybe a new one, or maybe a multi-chain
Or they're
one.
just talking about generally blockchain has metaverses. Would you like to come work in blockchain? That's also possible.
No. They're definitely
So
working on a specific metaverse game for me.
Not to shit on anyone's parade, but that's also possible. I think for me, one of the things about that particular tweet that really got me excited, just like what Zack mentioned, is that in the context of the current market that we're in, which is obviously not a good market right now, it's clear that we're in a bear. We've been in one for a while. EOS is in a position, as whether it's the ENF or whether it's people that have been benefactors of the various funding mechanisms that are now being present on EOS, like Eden, like Pomelo, like the grant framework, whether or not it's the direct grant recipients, like Zach mentioned, the working groups and such, certain block producers, OCI. People are hiring. There's money going towards building in a bear market. For me, that's the most exciting thing, because that's the most important time to be able to be deploying, or to have the luxury essentially of being able to deploy capital in a time where there's tremendous opportunities. The costs are definitely lower, and alternative blockchains right now are cutting. So we've all seen Coinbase, I think it's 20% cut. There's a bunch of other entities within the space that have been just cutting, and EOS is in the opposite side of things. It's growing. businesses within EOS are growing. And in part, it's because EOS doesn't have any liabilities. So when we look at other foundations, for example, during the bull market, they entered into partnerships and into agreements. And those partnerships and agreements typically will be over a multi-year period. So let's say they've come into an agreement or a partnership and they're now bound for the next 4 years to actually pay out a certain amount of tokens linked to fiat valuation month over month. They're now having to sell more tokens in order to meet those agreements, which causes further downward pressure on their token. Whereas in our case with EOS, the network itself literally has no liabilities. And so we are in a position where we're extremely resilient. If you haven't figured that out by now, I'm not sure where you've been in EOS, because that's one, I think, of our superpowers. But also, we're in a position where we don't have liabilities. We've learned to essentially survive kind of the cockroach strategy, using or having access to very little funding and access to assets. And now we're capable of building with the very little assets that we have, amplified by what the network has made available through the ENF. And so we're in an incredibly good position. And that's really what excites me about all of this right now.
Absolutely. And yeah, so I'm going to share a few more of your tweets, Yves, that you made in the last week. I think they're really good. They're really exciting. Hopefully you don't rain on my parade on all of them. Here we have one from a few days ago.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Think tanks are an underestimated business development weapon. We spent over $1 million to sponsor 6 different think tanks to enhance the user experience and to push Web3 into the forefront of innovation. Here's a thread on what we learned. So Yves continues, we funded these think tanks, which we call working groups, to gather, research, and propose improvement to the EOS network. After identifying the key areas to focus on, we collaborated with the most qualified people. The final deliverable was 6 academic research papers. The 6 topics we focused on are client-side integrations, security, EOS core BizDev, APIs, DeFi risk mitigation, and EOS yield opportunities to maximize TVL. And then the thread continues with kind of a brief explanation of all of these things, obviously linking to all of the Bluepaper. So I thought that was a really good thread. It got some nice action on Twitter, over 200 likes, 86 retweets, etc. I linked it here in the stream chat. I encourage you guys to like it, retweet it as well, share the good news. Oh, I see one more like. Thank you, whoever gave that extra like. Yeah, okay, another tweet from Yves recently that was pretty good. He says that gaming is one of the natural use cases for crypto. EOS is already home to one of the most popular blockchain games in the world, Upland, but there's much more on the horizon. Keep an eye out in the news for EOS over the coming days. So also very exciting tweets, exciting progress coming to EOS. All right, and yeah, I think those were some of the tweets I wanted to highlight. Talking about Upland, actually, there's a recent interview that they did during for the Las Vegas release. So Upland is kind of like they release different cities. They open up different cities on their map. They released Las Vegas recently, and they were bragging that their release went flawlessly, and they were able to mint 60 NFTs per second, when they launched this new city in their game. And there was no extreme gas prices, no failed transactions. Everything ran smoothly, right? 60 NFTs per second. If you extrapolate that for a whole day, that would mean over 5 million NFTs minted, no problem. Now, I don't think that they kept up this rate for that long. I'm not sure how long they kept up this rate, but it just demonstrates the power of EOS, the stability of EOS, and the fact that these massive games can run on EOS and do big launches with super high activity in a small amount of time and still be able to deliver what they want. So I thought that was really good. Gonna give EOS a round of applause for being able to support a game like Upland. Okay, so I think that kind of covers most of the topics I wanted to share. I guess quick update on the EOSIO Coalition meetings. Those were not published for the last few weeks because they were working on the very secretive rebrand for EOSIO. Unfortunately, the rebrand is still not out yet. I'm very, very excited to learn what that is, but just wanted to mention that these EOSIO Coalition meetings are now back to being published, so you can find those on the Everything EOS YouTube channel. All right, so that covers it for the topics that I wanted to cover. Anyone here in the community want to jump in, say hi, share a comment, ask a question, share some updates? This is the time to do it. Doug, you sound like a chipmunk.
Wasn't sure if that was one of your sound effects.
Nope, that's the custom Doug sound effect. That one's me. Is that it, guys? Are we wrapping it up? Last chance. Let me see here. We got some more chatter.
I thought you wanted to talk about some more crypto wide topics this week. That was before we knew it was going to get 2.5 hours, though.
Yeah, that was before it was going to get 2.5 hours. Yeah, I mean, lots going on in the crypto markets in general. Obviously, last few weeks, we've seen a lot of mayhem, seen a lot of chaos. We've seen a lot of protocols kind of showing their true colors when they really, get into highly stressful or risky situations. I was talking with Zack about this earlier today. It feels like a lot of these problems that all these new layer ones are facing now were kind of already faced and handled by EOS, a year or two ago. And it feels like finally, all the hype for these new L1s, which were supposed to be perfect and not have these flaws and blah, blah, blah. Turns out a lot of them are centralized. Turns out a lot of them are flawed. And, we're seeing a lot of these cracks being exposed in these other networks. Obviously, it's not good for the crypto space in general, but kind of felt a bit vindicated, that EOS is not having any of these issues at the moment. We've already dealt with some of these issues. So I don't know if you want to add more to that, Zack, or if anyone else wanted to jump in, share some of their thoughts on what's going on in the wider crypto markets. Those are just some of the thoughts that I had over the last few days. We've had DAOs voting to take over whale accounts. We've had DeFi protocols turning out to not be very decentralized at all. Solana obviously taking breaks every few days for a few days or whatever it is. Been very, very interesting to see all this action.
Solana's not even on. The joke was that Solana was open like 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, and it's not even that anymore. They're like having summer holidays. They're on vacation most of the time.
Yeah, they're on vacation, and then when they come back from vacation, they need to freeze huge accounts in Solend because they're afraid that if that one account gets liquidated, it's gonna both crash
the whole market.
The price and the network will shut down. So that was pretty interesting to see how they reacted to that. What else happened? There was a DAO that decided to vote to not fully give an early investor their full 30x return. because the DAO felt that this early VC investor did not provide enough value outside of the original funding, which really was not part of the agreement, but the DAO just still decided to block those tokens.
Well, on that one, to add a caveat, the investor in question agreed to the terms ultimately, from my understanding. So the investor actually agreed. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but the investor agreed with that proposal. They went back and forth. I think there was they offered 3%, came back with 8%, went back to whatever, and ultimately they both agreed.
Okay. That's not so bad then. But yeah, lots of things going down in the markets. I think we're going to see a lot of networks completely blow up and shut down over the next year. I think we're going to see a consolidation of a lot of these L1s. Obviously, I don't think EOS is at risk in that regards. Like Yves said, we're very resilient. We've been through a lot of these issues already. And we've come up with solutions, and with the Bluepapers, a lot of other solutions are currently in the works. So it's at the same time depressing for these crypto prices to be at the end of 2017 levels, but also I'm very excited for what the future holds for EOS in the coming months. And got my popcorn ready for more craziness in the crypto markets in the coming months and weeks. What have you guys been seeing around crypto Twitter lately? Any stories you want to share? You guys want to share? Jump on in.
Maybe just one thing to mention, dropping, I guess, some kind of alpha. There's been there's been discussion, or just a couple of things. The person here, and I'll wait for the other one. But there's one thing that we've been working on for a while, and that was brought up by Eden members, for example, for those who are watching the Eden meetings, is that EOS hasn't had a physical presence at conferences around the world very much, and that was by design. So to bring it back in context, if you think back at last September, ENF was really just Zack and I, and at that time we didn't really have any formal processes in place. We didn't really have any frameworks in place. It was literally just him and I. And so we were sitting on a mandate from the block producers, the token holders, the stakeholders of the network, but we didn't really have the actual manpower or human resources to be able to affect a lot of what it is we wanted to do. And we made a conscious decision at that time that, and we had that discussion, that if we were to start going on the road and attending conferences, two things. One is then who would be back at home building out the systems that you now see 8 months later having been built. But also, if we were at those conferences, what would we be talking about? What would we be showcasing? So we'd be telling them, we'd be telling developers, we'd be telling investors and businesses and individual, what? Come and look at EOS. Just trust us. There's something that's going to happen in the next 8 months. Like, we're going to be building grant frameworks in the next 8 months. We're going to be having Pomelo in the next couple of months. We're going to having this, that, and whatever it is. We wouldn't have had much to showcase for it. And when people would have started looking into EOS, what they would have seen is that for a year or two before, there was a significant downtrend in terms of development from the main contributor. And they would have seen that in terms of daily usage having gone down, in terms of value obviously gone down and such. And so we didn't think that that was really appropriate to do at the time. And so instead we spent time building, and we spent time building the foundations for the foundation, building out the frameworks that lead to what you see today, with having a team in place, having different funding bucket mechanisms, having actual frameworks around those mechanisms, so that when we do go back on the road, that we can actually point to these initiatives that are no longer theoretical, but that have been running for a while, are very concrete, and when people are interested, we can actually point them to it. And there's a mechanism to be able to process whoever is looking to participate in the ecosystem. So having said that, we've been working in the background. I've been working in the background for a while with one of the partners that actually stems out of the original four Bluepapers, to be able to have an in-person physical presence, boot on the ground, ongoing at conferences throughout the world as of a certain time. So we've been working on this for a while, so that we already have a timeline. We already have the events that we'll be attending. We already have that laid out. We already have the branding, the marketing. We already have the vision of what people will be talking about. We already have, basically the infrastructure for that to then become beneficial. So I think it was Trimbot that was mentioning a few weeks back, a lot of the capital that you spend on marketing at the onset, it really goes unnoticed because a lot of it is building the foundations, laying out the groundwork for then that to be amplified. And that's what we've been working on. So as of September, obviously we mentioned Token 2049, which is one of the events that we'll be attending and we're title sponsor. We also mentioned, I believe that was made public, that the likelihood is that I'll be attending Upland Dev Conference in Seoul the week before. But we also have a list of 10 or so events that we'll be attending between the month of September, October, November, December, and ongoing in a particular geographic location. So I'm not spilling all the beans right now, but that geographic location is quite wide. And then we also have another team that's been pitching this very idea, but in a different geographic location, so that EOS can effectively have, within the next couple of months, boots on the ground constantly throughout the world, so that most of the events that you hear of, EOS will be formally represented, manned at booths, with everything that you would expect from a layer 1 blockchain to be able to be in presence and in attendance. So that is very much happening, and that is extremely exciting, because once that happens, all of the work that we've been doing will now be made public effectively for the rest of the world that really hasn't been paying attention. And all of this in a bear market where everybody else is actually cutting down on costs, letting go of people, being able to produce less. We've been effectively being able to be very, very good with our finances to be able to produce more when the time is right, and that time is now.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby.
Thanks, Patrick. I was slow on the trigger there.
That was perfect.
Yeah, guys, that's the perfect time for collaboration, the perfect time for more education. However, we are some struggle with the price. As always, the price not define us. And all will come align on September 23rd, 24 and after. Yield plus Trust VM, Mandel equal more TVL, and more liquidity on chain. EOS is the settlement layer, the exponential operating system, the entry point to multi-chain protocol, full RPC compatibility, Pomelo, the reputation engine, the hidden fractal as a catalyst to more collaboration. We are here for the long term. So go EOS. No time for complaining. The time is to join common force in a coordinated effort. So we have the narrative. We can reach the influencers. We have to go outside. Let's go EOS!
Go EOS!
Go EOS!
Well said.
Go
All
EOS!
right. Go EOS! Thanks for joining, everyone. We'll talk to you next
That's my
week.
pitch.
That was a great ending, Patrick. Absolutely wonderful.
Great speech, Brad. Go EOS!
Go EOS!
EOS! 3, 2, 1, 0, go!
Go EOS!
Go EOS!
Go EOS!
Well done, guys. Well done.